nation and you want to turn the tide, you got Four Seasons Pest Solutions on your side.
Anyone do any crawl space encapsulations here? We have a lot of crawl spaces in Kentucky, would you say? What's the percentage? Lot, most? 78%? Yep. Basements, a lot of basements, right? So anything like that we're dealing with. I like to do a little safety share. You know, of course, I was in law enforcement, seen a lot of things. I've dealt with pest control operators as a deputy sheriff and dealt with either complaints or situations where a pest control operator was shot because they thought that someone was breaking in their home. And that's another program I put on. It's very interesting. We got to be very careful. We got to be aware of our surroundings. We even have to be aware of how we park our vehicle and plan our route, how we're going to leave. I always recommend people do a safety check before they even break out all the equipment, because one of the reasons is, you know, encountering dogs, right? Anyone got bit by a dog yet on duty, right? Anyone know Pam Haddon over here? She works for Viceris in our Cincinnati branch. Been in the industry for many, many years, very knowledgeable, and that's another good resource. You start doing business with me and her, we could try to make your job a lot easier. Very good person. She was attacked by a dog very seriously, and I hope I don't bring up trauma, but she knows what it's like. I own 2 dogs. I sleep with one of them in my bed. She's a pretty big dog, 70 pounds. I love my dog. Well, I think she'd bite somebody. I think she would if someone tried to get in the house. She's very territorial. All dogs are. So what I'm saying, if you own a dog and you think you're a dog whisperer, you're not. All right? You encroach on a dog's territory, that dog's going to do whatever it's going to take to get you off that property. Okay? So you encounter a dog. The best thing is to back off and not enter the property. Don't trust the dog, even if the dog's wagging its tail. I've seen dogs bite when their tail was wagging. Okay, so that's no indication. Don't even chance it. Don't go in the yard, right? Get back in the car, see if you can contact the owner to bring the dog inside or what have you, or maybe reschedule. I do not recommend you, spraying with the dog. You got the sprayer in the hand, they might find you, like you're going to attack them or something like that, and you get bit. I was bit on duty on a traffic stop. And I told the person, I said, roll up your window, I don't want your dog getting out and jumping in traffic, getting hit or biting me. Oh, he ain't going to bite. That's the last thing I heard, right? Because it jumped out of the passenger side, went up behind me and bit me in the rear extremities, right? It didn't feel too well. So never trust a dog, never trust an animal. We can't read their minds, and we're not animal whisperers. So really good key indicators looking for dogs, because a lot of times people change their environments all the time. We might think we know the property or know the account. One week we're there, one week we are, or the next month or quarterly, whatever you're doing. And then you notice something different. There's a dog in the yard or what have you. Key indicators, if you don't actually see dogs or animals, dugout fences, look for something like that. We're always got to be aware of our surroundings. Be safe. Present of, you smell dog poop. There's got to be a dog, right, somewhere. It could be in the neighbor's yard or whatever, but, be aware of that. Yellow spotting in the grass, waste odors, feeding stations, pet access doors, trailing marks in the landscape. Unless you're dealing with big rodents, if you got trail marks in the landscape, you might be dealing with dogs and pet chew toys. These are good indicators of dog injuries. This gentleman, this is a case I actually worked when I was a deputy sheriff in Mims, Florida. Gentleman went out, took his trash out. Rottweilers next door jumped the fence and had themselves a little meal. All right? If you are attacked by a dog, do not You got to stay away from the ground. You cannot go on the ground. If you go on the ground, you will lose with the dog. You want to keep your limbs in, fold them, kick hard to the throat area. You hit a dog over the head, you're not going to stop them. It will not hurt them. There's videos on the internet that there's dogs, they're actually engaged in the bite, and people are taking hammers and hitting dogs in the head trying to get them off. Hitting them in the head is not going to get them off. You've got to hit them in the throat, all right? Kick hard in the throat fast and retract your leg fast. Get on top of something, get an object in between you, right? Most of us are carrying B&Gs or what have you. Get that in between you. Put that in their mouth. At that point, you're trying to save your life. So if you have to, take care of the dog and neutralize them, then that's what you have to do. But try not to put yourself in that position in the first place. Be aware of your surroundings. Okay, that's the most important thing, and we need to go home and be safe. And I like to add another thing to it. When I talk about armed encounters. I don't know if a lot of you guys have turnkey accounts. You have a key to a residence. You go inside. It's very, very dangerous entering a residence by yourself. Very dangerous. I recommend that you don't do them. If you do them, have a body cam, and also do a safety check. Make sure. Who's to say you're walking into a burglary in progress? Someone broke in the back. They're armed. You walk in on them. You don't have a gun on you. I know some companies that carry some guns, but it can be a really serious thing. So you got to think about things when you are on these accounts. This is a little thing I've seen on the internet. There are 3 moles in the tunnel. The first one says, "I smell sugar." The second one says, "I smell cinnamon." And the third one says, "I smell molasses." Right? And I put this up here because it kind of makes sense, right? Everyone has their own perspective on things in life, right? You ask one thing or put one technician on account, they may say one thing, and you put one on the other, and they might say another. So the point here is, if you're having problems, if you have an account problem that you can't solve, don't be defeated. Get someone else there. Put 2 minds together. Try to figure out the problem. And if the 2 minds can't do it, put a 3rd mind into it. Just don't give up and spray and just walk and continue and go about your business. You guys are investigators, field investigators. You go there, you investigate, you diagnose, and you treat. Right? And it's not in reverse. PMP 101, we've got to find out the problem, why the problem exists, and what's the best solution to the problem. And if there's a problem or conducive conditions, like Matt had mentioned earlier, if the conducive conditions cannot be corrected and we're still treating, why do we treat? Because you know what it is? It's going to be a nightmare account. You're going to get callbacks. And what does callbacks do? Make us less effective. Make your business less effective. So if you're losing money, those chances for bonuses or raises and stuff like that may take a little bit longer because, the business isn't that profitable. We're making losses because we're doing too many callbacks. Okay? Our course objective, crawl space inspections for more than just termite activity. We will understand how important these areas are to the life of the structure and how we can utilize this information to effectively control the pests or improve even the living space in the structure. Insect issues, what insects can be encountered and how can those issues be treated. How moist or organic growth affects the structures and how it may make insecticidal treatments more difficult. How encapsulations or vapor barriers work and how they improve the effectiveness of preventing pest issues along with moisture and related problems. So basically, we're going to get into evaluating the crawl space. We need to inspect the crawl space and how to interpret what we see in the crawl space to maybe take care of conducive conditions with infestations, or even maybe improve those conditions to even rectify the problem altogether without even applying a treatment. So very, very interesting with how the crawl space dynamics works. So our common crawl space, there are many components of the basic crawl space: the floor joists or crawl space ceiling, fiberglass insulation between the joists, beams to columns or piers, the sill plate, which rests on the foundation walls and are connected to the joists leading into the subflooring. Vents, if the vents exist, it would be vented crawl space. On the floor, you should have exposed dirt or gravel. I always include inspection of the gutters, downspouts, to make sure the water is being directed away from the foundation. Also, you may have some condensation lines to inspect and to make sure that they are draining along the not draining along the foundation. A big point when we inspect the crawl space, sometimes we forget about inspecting the exterior around the foundation, around the foundation walls. A lot of situations, we have to take everything in whole. When we inspect the crawl spaces, we're looking for anything that doesn't look right. And if it doesn't look right, why does it? Why is it not looking right to us? Prior to entering the crawl space, check the perimeter of the potential drainage issues. It's recommended to have those issues addressed prior to any long-term treatments, for example, termiticides or termite stations. If a situation remains flooded due to poor drainage, I'm sure termites are very poor swimmers, so it's going to be less effective, especially if you have flooded termite stations. I had a customer call me and said, listen, we've got Trilona in place. It's not working. We're getting multiple worms every season, and I don't think the Trilona works. I think we're going to have to rethink the way we're doing termite treatments. And I go, listen, when can you go out there? He says, tomorrow. Give me the address. I'll meet you out there. Let's find out what the problem is. So we go out there. He gets in the truck with me. We drive out, and I said, I'm going to stop right now. And I go, is it that house 3 houses down? He said, yeah, how did you know? I said, well, from here I could see in the gutters, there's like small trees growing. So I know the gutter system is not working. So you're going to have a poor drainage problem. That water's just running right off the roof, and I guarantee it's going right in those termite stations, and all those termite stations are flooded out. He goes, that's amazing that you, I said, no, you can see the gutter situation. So we get there, and that's what it is. The gutters are not working. The water's coming off the roof, and it's just a waterfall right into the termite stations. We inspect the termite stations. Every one of them have water in them. They're all flooded out. I said, termites don't swim. So they're not going to swim through the water and hit on the Trilona. So, first that's one issue. And then you can look at the house and you can see staining around the foundation walls. And also they were doing a rodent program, and on the rodent bait stations. We open up the rodent stations, you see water line in the rodent stations. You can see the downgrade, and you can just see the drainage problems. I said, what happened is a technician came here and got in his routine and made the application, and we didn't see why and investigate why we have termite problems with this house, because we have severe moisture problems. So we just kind of wasted our time putting those termite stations in until we take care of those conducive conditions. They're going to continue to happen. So that's why we need to look at the whole picture, and instead of just getting in our routine and doing what we're doing, there's always if there's an infestation, there's always a reason why. Let's always figure that reason why out. Crawl space doors should be tight and sealed without no gaps, because we get the air leakage getting into the crawl space, causing all kinds of problems. This will also prevent occasional invaders getting in the crawl space. These doors can be replaced with prefabricated doors, which we do sell. We partner up with Your Crawl Space. We have all that crawl space material in stock. I have a lot of customers that construct their own crawl space doors too, which they do a really good job, and it's not really hard to construct your own crawl space doors. Fallen insulation is evidence of what? We all know what fallen insulation is, right? You got condensate, insulation gets heavy and starts falling, so that's a really good indication. And use all of our senses, right? If you go in there and smell and it smells musty, I mean, you don't really need to go any further with that. You know there's going to be some type of potential organic growth because we've got a musty smell. We've got moisture, right? I want to make sure I hit every point here because this has a lot of data to it. So we want to check the floor doors for organic evidence or with pest damage. Note the conditions of the soil. Is it damp? When we crawl in there, is it damp, muddy? Observe, if you observe any standing water or black water. Everyone know what black water is? It's poop water, right? We have a sewage leak. We want to stay away from the black water. And this will indicate potential source of past moisture issues from draining issues. If the crawl space is vented, check the vents for damage or exclusionary issues. You know, if you've got your damaged vents, you've got rodents, bugs, all kinds of stuff going in them. Or if the vents are blocked off, this could be a big issue, especially if a crawl space doesn't have some type of vapor barrier or a dehumidification product in place. Check the sewage lines, water lines for any leakage. Check the ductworks to see if they're sweating. If we have condensate on the ductworks, and usually if they're not insulated, you will generally see condensate on the ductwork, and it's just dripping down in the soil and causes all kinds of problems. If the customer's complaining of buckling and coupling wood floors, that's a really good key indication that we're getting moisture in the crawl space or in the basement. All right, we've seen this damage before on the previous talk with Matt. This is going to be termite activity. Got some tubes, got some frass going on. This is an easy one, right? Stick your head in there, right? And you can see with this image, there's a high moisture content. You know, it's a loose barrier, vapor barrier treatment. It doesn't go up to the foundation wall, so you're having that diffusion from the soil and the moisture, and the termites like that. You know, luckily for them, I think they caught this one a little bit early, right? That dirt, hopefully not that much damage, but you know, this is what moisture does for us. Post beetle, powder post beetle damage, right? How much of an issue in this region we're having with powder post beetles? Lot. So easy to identify. You see the little holes, right, in the powder. Even if it's not actually a powder post beetle, you know, you have some type of wood boring insect, right? So we have issues. So, you know, I mean, we don't really actually need to know at that time that, hey, what actual type of beetle, what species. We just know it's causing damage to the structure. We have an issue. When looking at potential beetle or wood infesting damage or wood insects, just remember if the holes are oval in shape, you know you're looking at a flat-headed borers like the old house borers. If you see larger holes, you're dealing with the round-headed borers, or possibly carpenter bees. So we got to make sure, you know, we're not dealing with carpenter bees either. Small round holes are going to be the lichted or powder post beetles. Keeping moisture content in the wood below 6% is really a good preventative, but sometimes that moisture content's a little dry at 6%. But if you're below 6%, you're not going to have beetle issues in the wood. So if you have an issue where you have a beetle infestation and you can't treat it, you know, if you can get the moisture content below 6%, that might be a good natural treatment that you can do to stop the infestation or even the attractiveness of the wood. Well, how these holes are formed: the female adult beetle, from 1 to 35 days, they lay the eggs in the small crevices of the wood. 1 to 4 weeks, the eggs will hatch. The larvae will then, they'll go deeper in the wood. Sometimes, I think it's an inch, they could go up to 12 inches in the wood. Larvae bore deep into the wood, feeding on the wood, 1.5 months up to 12 years. It will then pupate just below the surface. After pupation, from 1 to 4 weeks, and it will emerge just right below the surface of the wood, causing the holes, and that's what we're seeing there. Well, I hope you never run into this situation, because I hate spiders. This is why I hate getting into crawl spaces. It's not going to be this easy, though. I digital imaged those spiders on there. But I tell you what, if I open up a crawl space and see that, someone else is going to go in that crawl space. I'm not going in there. Maybe with a flamethrower. I hate spiders. So this is a good example of potential issues in crawl spaces, especially like brown recluses or black widows, brown widows. We got to be careful in these crawl spaces. We got to make it safe for us. I don't know, anyone use crawl suits or Tyvek suits? I tell you what, if you go in a crawl space without a Tyvek suit and the hood and the bump cap and knee pads, and you're a better man than I am, because I tell you what, I heard all kinds of stories with nails going in the head and knees getting penetrated by old rusty nails, spiders going up pant legs and getting bit. I mean, I think every technician here got bit by a spider in the crawl space if they weren't wearing the right protection. You know, I go in there and I tape up the legs. I make sure nothing gets up in my crawl suit. But we got to be careful when we're in the crawl space. So we're in the crawl space looking for potential insect issues. If you're seeing a lot of webbing, I mean, you know that we're getting some pest issues in the crawl space, because the spiders are there not to just live and sleep. You know, they're in there eating and preying on insects. So this is a good indication that we've got spider activity. So we'll probably have either occasional evader issues with other pests or some other pest issues. So we look for, webbing in the crawl space. Serious spiders we got to look out for are the black and brown widows, the brown recluse. Very serious. We don't want to get bit by them. They hurt. They look nasty. They get infected. So let's be careful. Yes, sir.
How far east have the brown widows worked?
Gosh, it's all over the place. You said brown widows, right? I'm not sure about Kentucky, but I know we're seeing them in West Tennessee, West North. I really don't have any information on Kentucky. Anyone seeing them a lot? I really don't know. I have to look, and I do have some customers over there on the west side, but I would have to look into that. I'm not really sure.
West Tennessee,
yeah.
Definitely migrated this way.
Yeah.
A little bit anyway.
Yeah. And all those regional maps, just like you said with fire ants, I kind of just take them as reference, and because once you say something, oh, you're not going to see it in this rate, you see it. I tell everyone, no matter what region you're in, you're susceptible to really any insect, because they move. I mean, they migrate. either by human activity or just by themselves, by blooming. It just, it's just hard to say. But I tell people just anticipate everything. Anticipate everything. That way you don't get surprised. Brown recluse, they're hunters. They don't employ any webs to catch food, but they can still, you can still see evidence of brown recluse or it's irregular webbing in corners, and usually they use them in their habitat just for safety purposes. But then you'll see skins like this. A lot of people go, "Oh, I got spiders." And then probably got the spiders, but their skins are not. They're not going to be the actual spider. They molted. Brown recluse are night hunters, but they are you're likely able to see the males moving around during the daylight. Female recluses are very seldom like moving around. They like to stay, really close to their little retreat. Black widows have very irregular webs, preferably closest to the ground. So anything like under tables or next to the floor, attached to cardboard boxes and the edge wall, places like that. Just very, very messy. The black widow egg sacs are round, white, brownish, smooth paper-like appearance, and the brown widow egg sac is going to look like a little woolly ball with spikes. So I mean, it's very. I mean, the eggs would probably be the first thing that you can identify what type of web it's going to be. Carpenter ant damage. Frass is very easy to identify. It's going to have all kinds of bug parts in it. Right, it's going to look like someone took a carving knife, right, to the wood. It's going to be like a fine coarse like frass. It's going to have all kinds of debris, unusual, objects in it, and dead insect body parts. So it just very, very hard to identify it as any termite frass. I mean, it's just so much different than the termite frass. All types of mold, wood damage, wood decay and fungi. We'll notice changes in the texture of the affected wood. The biggest tell of the white rot problem is a soft, spongy-like type texture. We'll also notice discoloration of the wood, unlike with brown rot, which darkens and cracks. White rot will turn yellow or white. So anytime you see anything on the surface of wood, it shouldn't be there really, right? So are we certified to identify wood damage or mold or anything like that? Most of us aren't. We can say that there's organic growth, right? If there's organic growth or any suspicious growth on wood, we know there's moisture, because in life we need moisture to grow, and insects need moisture also. After inspection is complete, you will need to interpret what the crawl space is telling us. It's very simple if you think about it. Moisture equals all kinds of problems, from organic growth to insect infestations, especially termites. These poor conditions in the crawl space even affect the living space air quality in the structure, and can cause serious illnesses to the occupants in the structure. You got people with asthma, all kinds allergies. I mean, I know I had moisture in my basement. I identified it because I have bad allergies. And once I rectified the issue, installed dehumidification, and made some other exclusionary corrections, it was gone. No more musty smell in the basement. Then you'll have to determine whether the issue you're dealing with this account, can the moisture levels be controlled without vapor barriers or encapsulating the crawl space? If the moisture isn't controlled by the if moisture isn't controlled, the problems where they continue. You you can perform whatever treatment you want, but if you don't control the conditions, you're just putting a Band-Aid on the problem, and it's just it's going to be an issue where it's going to continue to with callbacks, and we're going to lose money that way. With HVAC systems today being more powerful, supercooled ductwork in the crawl space are exposed to warmer temperatures, causing condensation, creating moisture issues. And this is probably one of the leading causes where we have moisture issues. Back in, when these codes were developed out west, they would never think that, with the high efficiency HVAC systems that we have, would do this. And that's why, we have these problems. You kind of think, well, they built the house. Why is it, well, because the codes aren't up to date. We're not up to date on the scientific data, and each region's different, especially with the codes being developed further out west, where temperatures are a lot different. The science behind the moisture is for each degree that the temperature increases, the relative humidity decreases 2%. Lowering the temperature will increase the relative humidity. Raising the temperature will decrease the relative humidity. RH, relative humidity, just tells us how full the air is of moisture. It does not tell us how much moisture is in the air. To get a better understanding of how much moisture is in the air, we need to understand the dew point in the air. High relative humidity levels can cause a wide spectrum of problems for homeowners, including damage to the home and its personal assets. Additionally, many individuals experience health-related issues due to high humidity. Environments that encourage mold growth and pest issues are also caused by high relative humidity. So with this slide, you start with pest problems, mold problems, health-related issues, and at higher humidities, damage to the home or assets. High levels of relative humidity can be damaging to a home. At 60% relative humidity, you can run the risk of mold growing. At 75% relative humidity, wood floors are likely to cup, and noticeable stains on the walls and ceilings may be visible. At 85% relative humidity, wood will rot and paint will blister and peel. Dew point is a water to air saturation temperature. This is a temperature at which dew begins to form. This is an absolute measurement of water in the air. So it's always there. It's absolute. It's dew point. And a lot of times our weather guide tells us what the dew point is. And there's also a way to calculate what the dew point is. And you can actually tell a customer, hey, listen, your dew point in your crawl space is at this level, and it's it's a serious level. So when you know the dew point, you can determine when condensation will occur. If the dew point is above the surface temperature, condensation will occur. If the dew point is below the surface temperature, there will be no condensation. A classic example of this is a soda can. If you ever wondered how the condensate will collect on the can, it's because the dew point is above the surface temperature of the can. So how do we solve humidity issues? Using a dehumidifier in the basement or crawl space to remove moisture from the air. Dehumidifiers are a tool designed to remove water from the air. And with the dehumidifiers, it will control the moisture and prevent and reduce damage to the home, and also control the attractiveness of insect infestations like termites and other insects that seek moisture. The weather person tells us about dew point all the time, but what does that number really mean? High numbers, 60 degree Fahrenheit to 75 degree Fahrenheit plus, tells the person that it's sticky outside. Values like 50 degrees Fahrenheit or lower show that it is dry out. The same will apply to inside conditions. High dew point levels inside a home will make the space uncomfortable. So as the dew point increases, the more miserable it's going to get. And you'll actually feel it in the air. Knowing the dew point is not always easy because many meters read only the air temperature and relative humidity. However, if you know the relative humidity and the air temperature, you can calculate the dew point with, we'll get it, psychrometric calculator. So they have an app. They have these calculators online. All you have to do is punch in the relative humidity and temperature, and it'll give you a dew point. It's a very simple process. Santa Fe has a great Crawlspace monitor. They discontinued it, though, which kind of I'm upset about because actually I still have one in my Crawlspace, and it gives me dew point, relative humidity, 24/7. I could look it up. It tells me if I have water intrusion and sends me alert if I have any conducive conditions occurring. I mean, it's an excellent app. I don't know why they're doing away with it, but it was definitely a useful tool. We may still have a couple in stock, but they're not doing them anymore, and I don't know why. Green grass climates often have higher dew points in the spring, summer, and fall. This map shows you the average dew points in your region for the month of July. For example, in the most of Tennessee, where I live, it's between 65 and 70, which would still be the same type of region here in Kentucky. So we definitely deal with higher dew point levels. So when we're getting in the crawl space and moisture issues, we're going to find those problems in your region. So where does the moisture go? And where does it come from? Water moves in and out of a home, basement, crawl space in three ways. From air leaks, diffusion through materials, internally generated moisture. And you go, what's internally generated moisture? What would be a situation with that? Taking showers, right? Creating the moisture ourselves. Maybe kids playing in the bath and the bath overflows. A leaky dishwasher, sink, so on. Anything that's generated by us internally in the structure. Air leaks is the fastest and largest method of vapor transport according to the Energy Department. Air movement accounts for more than 98% of all water vapor movement in the building cavities. Air naturally moves from high pressure to low pressure areas by the easiest pass available, generally through holes like cracks, crevices, and through the building envelopes. And you can go on to the website of the Department of Energy, and if you'd like to do any more research on this, all this stuff is readily available on that website. Diffusion is a transfer of energy between objects that are in physical contact. Water vapor can still slowly migrate through what appears to be solid materials. Vapor molecules will slowly move through spaces between molecules of that material. Even if you have a vapor barrier, depending on what the perms are, that if it's in contact with that soil, there's a potential that water vapor is going through that material. But you've got to find the correct material that the perms are a lot lower, so it's a little bit more efficient. The rate water vapor diffuses through materials is measured by the perms. Higher perms mean higher water vapor flow rates. So we got to look at the perms of the material that we're dealing with. The second law of thermodynamics tells us that over time, differences in temperature, pressure, and density tend to even out in a horizontal plane, but not in a vertical plane due to the force of gravity. Hot goes to cold, wet goes to dry, high goes to low. This will continue until the system becomes equal. This will help us start understand how the moisture moves in and out of a home, basement, crawl space, and so on. So hot goes to dry, hot goes to cold, wet goes to dry, high goes to low. So when you have what's a good example of that is we have a 36 mil poly that has a felt, hydrofluoric felt on the bottom of it, and that will wick up if you have moisture in the lower part of the crawl space. And this is a good example of wet moving to dry. That material will wick that moisture from the low and move to the high position. So these laws of thermodynamics is really a good thing to know, especially when it comes to leaks, water intrusion, and elevations. Basement and crawl space air impacts the whole home because of the stack effect. Since buildings are not totally sealed, at the very minimum, there is always a ground level entrance. The stack effect will cause air infiltration. During the heating season, the warmer indoor air rises through the building and escapes at the top either through windows, ventilation openings, or unintentional holes in the ceiling, like ceiling fans or access lighting. The rising warm air reduces the pressure in the basement of the building, drawing cold air through either open doors, windows, and other openings and leakage. During the cool season, the stack effect is reversed, but is typically weaker due to the lower temperature differences. The stack effect creates a vacuum in the crawl space or basement. As the air is sucked up through the home, it brings with it all the contaminants from the basement or crawl space, including mold spores, dust mite feces, and radon gas. This can cause a variation of health problems and has been known to cause and aggravate asthma conditions as well as many other breathing problems. Some of us are allergic to these type of particles and will suffer from those conditions if you have allergic reactions to them. So generally, that contaminated air in the basement moving up into the home and getting into the living space. So if we're able to control that environment in the crawl space, we improve the living conditions for our homeowners. That will make us superstars. So most insects require moisture to live, and that prolonged damp conditions can encourage establishment of termite colonies. Termites cause more than $2 billion in damage each year and could have been prevented if moisture was eliminated from the equation. Termites thrive in woods at approximately 21% moisture content. We need to keep the wood within normal levels, which would be around 8 to 12% moisture content to make it less attractive to the termites. So just controlling the moisture content in the wood, we're kind of really putting a guard on that wood for potential, to prevent potential termite infestations. Advanced energy research has confirmed over a long term what we and other building scientists have measured repeatedly in previous short-term investigations of crawl space failure. The outside air contains more water vapor than the air in the crawl space during warm seasons and has no potential to dry the crawl space. Instead, the outside air ends up contributing to the water vapor in the crawl space, causing condensation. So in other words, the original design and the codes generated out west are outdated and are failing, and these contractors and these builders are still building the houses this way that are failing. Now, what does that mean for you? A lot of my customers hooked up with construction crews, right, and home builders, and they're doing these crawl space encapsulations, installing them, right, pre-construction, right after the crawl space is constructed. So it's good business. It's very profitable. So and also it's a good opportunity.
Remember at 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Gotcha. To effectively control the moisture, you should encapsulate the crawl space, seal the vents, install a vapor barrier, and add a dehumidifier. So how do we solve the humidity issues? Using a dehumidifier in the basement or crawl space removes moisture from the air. I'm going through this quick now because he gave me a 5-minute warning. Moisture equalizes, so wet goes to dry, dry goes to wet. If you know the relative humidity and temperature of the space, you can understand the moisture content of the wood. For example, at 50% relative humidity and 70 degrees Fahrenheit, moisture content should be at 9.2. Highlighted in red is the EP recommendation of 30 to 50% relative humidity. You would never have a moisture content higher than 9.5 if you're maintaining a relative humidity at 50%. You can test the wood in the crawl space using a moisture meter or moisture sticks. These are things that you can purchase to monitor the crawl space. You got the, does this have a pointer on it? Yeah. You had the Santa Fe Century, which they're discontinuing. It's app-based. It's very good. And then you have these small moisture meters. They have one that goes on the surface of the wood that you don't have to penetrate the wood. But what I recommend, these are more effective. It's a little probes. You go into the wood. It gets below that initial surface of the wood and gives you a more accurate wood moisture content. So basically, we've got to be careful when we do encapsulate crawl spaces because situations where you have a gas-heated water tank or what have you, those type appliances require proper ventilation and certain types of ventilation. So if you have those issues, you can still do a crawl space encaps, but I recommend that you don't get involved with that unless you're very experienced on those ventilation qualities for those appliances. Open and vented crawl spaces, the vented, you're going to have vents, and then you're going to have a closed crawl space. If you're dealing with a closed crawl space or sealed crawl space and it doesn't have dehumidification in it, it's a problem. If you're going to close up and seal up a crawl space, you've got to have a dehumidifier in there. It's a must. So how do we clean up organic growth? This is a good product. YCS cleaner. It's activated peroxide. It cleans the wood and continues to brighten up the wood and brings all that organic matter out of the wood and drops off. And you can actually vacuum it up after that. So it's a good product. This is a semi-attempt to, if you have a customer that has a low budget, you could do modified encapsulation, going maybe 5 to 6 inches up the wall. I recommend sealing up the vents and putting a dehu on there, but you're still going to have diffusion in the foundation walls and stuff like that, so that's a good option. This is a perfect sealed crawl space where we need to wrap it up like a present, completely seal it, caulk up the seal plates, make sure we don't have any leaks, add your dehu, and you're in business. So you got a sealed crawl space. Also, just to mention, you got to check your local codes because after crawl space encapsulation, really you don't need any insulation, right? But sometimes local codes require that you have the insulation. So be aware of your local codes, and sometimes they require you to pull a permit. So let's look into there. So I'm going to go through here real quick. If you're interested in getting into crawl space encapsulation, we'll arrange training. We'll bring manufacturers on site, train you. Usually the pest control operator's home or one of the technicians' home, we'll go ahead and do one and show you how to do it and train you how to do it properly. We partnered up with YCS, April Air, Santa Fe, all these manufacturers who are really good crawl space professionals, and just teach it and get you into new business and make you more profitable. So today's crawl space industry average cost of materials is $2,300. Jobs are selling from $6 to $20 grand. This is a great revenue boost for your business. Should we treat for termites if other pests, if the accounts have moisture problems? How does it affect our treatments? Will this account be a continuous callback? Absolutely. If we don't take care of the conducive conditions, soil treatments compared to a termite annual bait. I tell you what, if you go with a baiting system, it's a lot less labor. You can increase some revenue, provide a good protection for your customers. If you had that termite bait station in place as a primary treatment, it's a lot less labor intensive if you have a termite infestation because you use localized treatment. You pump in less chemical in the ground, it's more environmental friendly, and it's a lot better on your termite technicians because it's less labor intensive. Okay? Termiticides, Termidor, Taurus, Navigator, Terminor HE. If you're going to go with liquid treatments, you're going to save a lot more money, even though it looks expensive when you buy the chemical. Terminor HE is what I recommend. You're cutting your labor in half. You're cutting your water in half. You're cutting, how many holes you got to drill and how many feet you have to trench. So Terminor HE would be the better option in this situation. Termite stations, I love them. Like I said, the less work you do, or the less labor you do, the more work you can do, the more customers you can help, and the more revenue your business generates. So if you're doing termite stations, you're going to need spot treatment products. These are good foaming. You've got Taurus Dry, Termidor Foam, Fuse Foam out there. Treatment options with other insects, spiders, cockroaches, ants, fleas, silverfish. Put your glue boards out. That's going to communicate what you have. ULV application into crawl space, I'd be very careful about that because of the stacking effect, especially if it's during the summer where that air is moving into the living space. You don't want to expose your people with unnecessary fumes. Dust, crack and crevices, direct spray applications. Vapor, Nuvan strips. Everyone know about Nuvan strips? They're labeled for crawl space and attics. It's a vapor, and it controls flying insects and crawling insects, and of course, glue boards. Another added service, gutter lock. If you have customers that have clogged gutters, this is another added service you can provide for them, and you're just adding a cover to the existing gutter and causing the leaves not to gather in the gutter, keeping them flowing. And that's it. Moisture in the crawl space. Be aware of the moisture issues prior to treatment. Moisture issues can be eliminated. Ground vapor barriers is a good option. Encapsulations, modified encapsulations. Crawl space moisture can be related to exterior drainage issues such as clogged gutters, which we can provide that service. If you need training on that, we can help you with that. There are many insecticide treatment options in the crawl space. Any questions? As my contact information, if you need any help with anything that I spoke about or anything else, feel free to give me a call and I'll be glad to help you. Thank you.